When it comes to good games stuck on the GameCube, there's no better example than F-Zero GX. It was the first title in the series to not be developed by Nintendo and was instead handed over to a Sega team known as Amusement Vision. GX feels like the magnum opus of the franchise and presents one of, if not the most intense racing game to ever be conceived. The aim of GX, as with all races, is to pilot your speedy, futuristic ship to the goal faster than all of the other racers on the track. There's no weapons, no items, just you and your chosen craft and your skill. You'll find yourself getting stuck into a series of modes ranging from the surprisingly deep story to the Grand Prix and multiplayer options that pit you against up to 30 different rivals across a range of different tracks that all pose their own unique challenges. From sharp turns to gravity-defying jumps, it's painfully obvious that the levels are designed to keep you on your toes. There's about 25 of them in total that become unlocked the further you progress through the story, as well as other collectibles and rewards such as upgrades for your ship, which can eventually be used on creating a custom one of your own. Now when it comes to the gameplay, the controls are incredibly tight and responsive. Admittedly, the sheer sense of speed is at times hard to keep up with, and when you couple this with the huge emphasis on speed boosts that you need to hit in order to come out on top, it can become a bit overwhelming. This steep learning curve will likely turn some players away, but for those that stick with it, you'll soon find yourself dashing around each course in style and hitting a podium finish each and every time. Ultimately, F-Zero GX deserves another chance to shine, whether that may be on the Switch or a future console, and with the recent release of F-Zero 99, it's looking more likely by the day.
1080 Avalanche is the sequel that took the 1998 N64 original and improves upon it in every aspect. Here is a snowboarding game that is fast-paced and intense while making controls significantly more responsive and accessible. Choosing from a variety of characters, both returning from the previous installment as well as new ones, you will tackle races across numerous tracks. You will race one-on-one against opponents, and based on the difficulty you choose, will determine which courses you board down. More impressively are the final acts in each difficulty, as you'll find yourself boarding down extreme tracks, and the later difficulties have you out-racing an avalanche as the title suggests. These moments are absolutely exhilarating as the game does a fantastic job with the sense of speed and audio design. The track design as a whole is both memorable and lively, whether there is wildlife running past you, other people trying to ski on the hill, to even crashing through a restaurant to board through. 1080's track design is just well thought out. If the core racing isn't enough though, there's also other modes to tackle, and each mode provides unlockables to strive for, such as hidden boards like the NES controller, as well as special characters to play as. There's also a trick attack in which you can do 3 different modes: Big Air, Half Pipe, and Freestyle, and each offer very unique experiences. Overall, 1080 Avalanche is a game that absolutely deserves your time and is easy to revisit over and over again. It is a shame that Nintendo has forgotten about this franchise and there hasn't been a new 1080 ever since. If you're going to experience 1080 Avalanche, you will still need to do so exclusively on the GameCube.
Go-Go Hyper Grind was by far one of the most bizarre games to hit the Nintendo Gamecube, and is essentially a skateboarding game based on character designs and animations from Spunko, the company responsible for the ever-popular Ren and Stimpy. The concept of a skateboarding game focused on this kind of childish, gross-out humor may initially sound wildly inappropriate, but Go-Go Hyper Grind actually performs surprisingly well, and turns out to be a fun, straightforward skateboarding experience with some genuinely funny gags and excellent presentation. There are 12 different skaters to try out, each with their own unique look and style, as well as strengths and weaknesses when it comes to pulling off tricks. The system in play shares much in common with the likes of the Tony Hawk games, and allows you to perform several impressive feats at the touch of a button. Apart from these simple moves like kickflips and grabs, there's a special mechanic known as gags that has the potential to link them all together. Each environment in the game contains a host of different gags that can be used by pressing the X button at the proper time, and range from swinging blades that can decapitate your skater to giant plants that gobble you up whole. By performing one of them, they put you into a special state that allows you to accumulate more points by multiplying your score for the duration of its effect. When you couple this with the excellent level design that's chock full of ramps, rails, and jumps, these gags can at times be strung into surprisingly long combinations, which you can then use to access harder to reach areas dotted about the map. Overall, if you're looking for something to jump into that's bound to put a smile on your face, Go-Go Hyper Grind is well worth giving a go.
Beach Spikers is a game developed by Sega's AM2, in which it does for volleyball what Virtua Tennis did for that respective sport. This 2v2 arcade volleyball game has you playing as girls across various nations. Utilizing a simple 2-button control scheme, the gameplay is all about timing your hits, and depending on your timing and positioning to hit the ball, will increase your chances to do a powerful spike. Tackling the World Tour mode is the game's main component, as you will create your own national team and have them go up against other nations. Now, initially, this is a game that will frustrate you, as your AI team partner for this will be at a low level and is near brain dead at times. However, the game is designed for you to fail initially and keep playing to level up your AI partner to the point where you're near unstoppable. The game's visuals and presentation are top-notch and perfectly capture that essence of a Sega arcade-style game. There's numerous courts to play at and even a GameCube-themed court. There's also your traditional arcade mode to tackle if you're looking for a quick pick-up-and-play session. However, it's the game's multiplayer and mini-games that'll have you coming back time and time again. Doing 4-player multiplayer matches will definitely get competitive, yet bring great laughs in the process. The mini-games here are also a blast, whether doing a flag run or playing something akin to Hot Potato, where depending on the type of hit you do to the volleyball itself, will affect the counter to decrease either slower or more rapidly until the last person that hits it explodes. It's hilarious and just plain good fun. This is a game that initially released in the arcades and then made its way to the GameCube, but it has never been ported anywhere else ever since. And Sega never released a follow-up of any kind to this IP, sadly. If you have a GameCube, I can never recommend this one enough.
In the past, Nintendo and M-rated games didn't usually go hand in hand. The advent of the GameCube, however, saw the company make a significant shift, with them starting to dip their toes into the world of mature titles, and saw them publishing 2 of Silicon Knights games, one being Eternal Darkness and the next a remake of MGS. This went hand in hand with Resident Evil also finding its new home on the system, and what felt like a real push by Nintendo to shape the somewhat child-friendly image they've garnered over the years. One game that looked to set the record straight was Geist, which offered up a supernatural take on the first-person shooter, and while a copious amount of your time with the game will be spent shooting at enemies and causing bloodshed, just to leave it at that would be doing the game a disservice, as it's equally made up of hefty bouts of exploration and puzzles that help it stand out amongst the sea of other FPS games that released at the time. Possession is a large component of Geist and plays a huge part in the game as a whole. You get to possess a huge variety of living and non-living objects throughout the adventure, from other soldiers to dogs and security cameras that all serve to solve one of the many head-scratching puzzles or increase your chances of making it out of the firefight. This aspect really comes into play during the many boss encounters, which demand an acute understanding of all the mechanics the game offers up, and if you're not careful, they'll completely wipe the floor with you. Admittedly, Geist is a little rough around the edges, but those minor aspects are more than made up for with its originality in its story and gameplay. If you find it on the cheap, it's well worth adding to your collection.
PN3 is an action game by the same creator of Resident Evil, Shinji Mikami. This was the first of the Capcom 5 to be released for the GameCube, and also the only one that ended up remaining exclusive all these years later. You play as Vanessa Z. Schneider, as she takes on a contract by a mysterious client to go up against Cams. While the story is extremely bare bones here, the gameplay is one that is quite enjoyable. Vanessa can fire energy shots from her hands thanks to her Aegis suit, and will dance and pose while shooting since, well, she's a dancer as well. You will go room to room destroying Cam's bots in your way, and occasionally some rooms will be locked down until you've taken down each bot. The game is very linear, but it works in its favor to keep the pacing going. However, there are times that there may be multiple rooms to explore, and some may have additional health and energy power-ups. Speaking of which, Vanessa can utilize her special energy drive abilities using simple inputs and fire significantly more powerful blasts. These can range from strong beam shots to homing shots that can target multiple enemies at once. These become essential when in the heat of battle, as well as boss fights. Much like Mikami-san is known for, this is not an easy game at first, and part of the challenge resides in its controls. While Vanessa is nimble, the game does have tank-like controls, but Vanessa can dodge incoming fire and even do somersault flips in the process. While not the most intricate game due to Mikami-san and team being rushed to wrap up development quick, what's here is still a fun time for sure. As stated though, this was the only one of the Capcom 5 that never made its way to other platforms due to poor sales and reception, but has become hidden gem status over time.
Custom Robo Battle Revolution is an RPG that captures the essence of a true anime, incorporating kiddish elements with mature ones and sealing it up with one of the most unexpected stories you'll find on the Gamecube. I don't want to go into too much detail as it's easily one of the finest parts of the game, so I'll leave that to you to discover. Now, much like the name suggests, Custom Robo is all about building robots and having the ability to pit them against each other in battle. Like in most RPGs, there's an extreme amount of customization, which serves as the core of the experience. There are many different types of robots for you to command, each with their own skills and abilities that you get to augment with several parts you'll be earning throughout your time with the game. While there are many different types of weapons for you to equip that will change the way you attack, the other parts are actually just as important and not just simple, stronger pieces of equipment like in most RPGs. Your robo's legs, for example, provide you with several different types of movement that you can use to your advantage. Some will allow you to simply move faster or jump for longer distances, and by combining the several types together, it'll give you an extra edge in combat, allowing you to dodge incoming attacks and reply in kind with a flurry of different attacks. In the end, there are thousands of different possible combos for each of the robos, and the game really pushes you to play around with the different parts you have access to. This game would make an excellent addition to any GameCube collection. For customization nuts like me, it was an absolute dream going through the game and tailoring my robo to any one of the situations that present itself throughout the story. If you're looking for a game you can lose hours upon hours to, make sure you don't pass this one up.
Star Fox Adventures is the one and only Rare developed game to hit the Nintendo Gamecube. Starting off development as Dinosaur Planet for the N64, this was an example of a game moving its production to the Gamecube. If you take the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time formula and throw it into a Star Fox universe, that is essentially what Star Fox Adventures equates to. Playing as Fox McCloud, you will explore various planets to put a stop to General Scales and his Sharp Claw army. Along the way, Fox will be accompanied by Prince Tricky the Dinosaur, as well as his Star Fox team to assist on his quest. Fox wields a staff as his main weapon, and combat, while simple, is also quite flashy to see in action. Fox will acquire new abilities to assist with exploring the lands, and the game will throw some variety at you with some puzzles, combat challenges, vehicle segments, and boss battles. As you explore and complete quests, you will travel to different planets, and here is where the core Star Fox elements come into play, as you get to pilot the R-Wing. In these segments, they basically serve to be in between gameplay sections where you fly through asteroid fields and retrieve a certain number of gold rings to advance to the next planet, all while in the process of shooting everything in your path. While it's not as intense as Star Fox 64's gameplay can get, it is a fun way to utilize the R-Wing and remind players that this is indeed a Star Fox themed game. Also, one thing to point out is that Star Fox Adventures is a breathtaking visual showstopper. For a game that released only 1 year after the GameCube came out, it really showcased the prowess of the console itself. While this is a game that many were divisive about, it is one that has garnered far more appreciation as time went on. Sadly, this game never received any sort of remaster on a future Nintendo console and is still only playable on the GameCube to this day.
There's no denying that Metal Gear Solid is without a doubt one of the most influential games of all time. Even to this day, it's possible to see the impact it had and what it did for video games as a medium. With its intricate and gripping story that captivated many who played it, would go on to spawn several sequels, as well as a ground-up remake on the GameCube. Now, the most obvious improvement were the visuals that received a complete overhaul and took full advantage of the extra power the GameCube had to offer. But it wasn't just the presentation that got the remake treatment, as the gameplay also saw several new aspects being introduced that were initially part of its sequel, Sons of Liberty, on the PS2. These came in the form of being able to shoot in first person, as well as hanging off ledges, and several other changes that made going through Shadow Moses once again a far more engaging journey. Of course, it didn't come without its problems, as due to these new aspects, many of the game's boss fights, for example, were incredibly easy to cheese. The change of director also saw many changes to the iconic cutscenes many fans know and love, and as a result, the somewhat grounded experience took on many characteristics of an anime, with Snake even backflipping off fucking missiles for God's sakes. It wasn't to everyone's taste, and for every person who loves this game, there's another that equally despises it. But when it comes down to looking at it from an objective point of view, the Twin Snakes is an enjoyable time. However, it'll never replace the admiration I have for the original release, but it did achieve what it set out to do, and that was to bring the PS1 classic up to date and provide yet another way to experience Solid Snake's timeless adventure.
Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem was Nintendo's first published M-rated game that began development for the N64, but was later decided to move development to the GameCube. In Eternal Darkness, you will play as Alex Roivas, who gets a phone call about her grandfather's gruesome death and must explore his mansion for clues as to what happened. Upon coming across the Tome of Eternal Darkness, you will begin to experience events that transpired over 2,000 years that involved individuals who came across the darkness. These time periods span from the ancient Roman times all the way to the 1990s and then current day with Alex. Each time you finish experiencing someone's story, you will discover certain elements within the mansion that become available to explore and advance through the story. While many survival horror games at this time followed tank controls and fixed camera angles, Eternal Darkness dishes those conventions for full analog control and a camera that pans along your character and successfully pulls this off without removing tension from the experience. Combat is also handled in a way where you can target individual body parts and has a strategic layer to it. However, Eternal Darkness's most unique premise resides within its sanity system, in which the game messes with you, the player, directly. Should your sanity meter deplete, you will start to see things that make you question what you're actually seeing on screen. Things like the game stating it is deleting your memory card when you chose to save the game, or shutting off your TV and turning it back on, as well as countless other examples, really sets this apart from every other experience within its genre. If you haven't experienced Eternal Darkness, it is a masterpiece that is still stuck on the GameCube and hasn't been ported or remastered on a future Nintendo console to date.
Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 2 as that'll be coming up soon. And don't forget to head over to GameCube Galaxy's channel and subscribe for more of his content. You can follow me on all of the socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.